Hey guys, you may be noticing three chat windows here, and so I am joined by a co host for the first time ever. This is my best friend in the whole world, Mr. Greg Young, who I actually wanted to be my very first interview on this, but as of now, I still haven't gotten him on yet, but we'll get him on one day. But
Soon enough, yeah.
the main man
Glad to be
here
on.
is. The main man here is Mr. Tony Rossi from Chicago, Illinois, who is my second international guest that I've got on here. So, how are you, Tony?
I'm well. Who was your first?
A wonderful actress from Los Angeles called Kendall Evans, who used to live over here and now she's moved back over there.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, lovely girl.
Yeah, yeah. And why don't you kind of quickly introduce yourself and what you're about, Tony?
Absolutely. So my name's Tony Rossi. I live here in Chicago in the States, and I am an actor, and I am also a mindset coach for actors, helping actors see things differently with the things that make us all stressed, because God knows there's a lot that makes us stressed.
Yeah, because I remember when I first started getting to know you, your kind of main catchphrase was "not perfect," and that's something that kind of really, because beforehand, I suppose I probably would have been very uptight about like kind of presenting a very kind of filtered view of myself to the public. But you've kind of encouraged me that it's okay to share the mistakes and the pratfalls as well because we're all human. So how did kind of not perfect sort of come about?
Yeah, and Bobby, I love that you're asking me this, and kudos for you embracing your own not perfectness, because I think it really does make us more genuine, and people are better able to connect with us more when we show that things aren't going great all the time. It started, oh gosh, I want to say maybe 5-ish years ago or so, and I was doing network marketing or MLM, and they were teaching us to be more positive on social media because no one's going to want to buy from somebody who's complaining all the time.
Yeah.
And it's funny, since
Mm.
then I've noticed all these business owners who I'm friends with, people who own bars, restaurants, or are coaches themselves, but then also use social media to vent. And that's what I started doing. If you go back far enough in my social media, I don't even want to be saying this, but like it's there. Like there's plenty of venting. But they taught us, if you really want to be marketable, you probably shouldn't do that. So I said, okay. So I start sharing at first lots of positive quotes, lots of stuff that I copy and pasted that could have been from anyone. And then slowly but surely, I started getting more creative with it. I started sharing these random hashtags. I was using hashtags before Facebook even acknowledged that hashtags were a thing. It was like, hashtags are for Twitter, dude. Why are you bringing them over to Facebook? And I'm like, it just seems cool. So I started doing that. And one day I just put not perfect. And I think a couple of other times I put not perfect. And I started noticing my friends were using the hashtag, but they weren't crediting me. And they were starting to, I was like, I know you got that from me, you know? So it was, but it taught me that people like this. People like the whole idea of not perfect, and people are using it. And even to this day, I saw somebody do it like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, dude, you got that from me, but it's okay. I'm not going to say anything. So that's kind of where it was born from. And now I just use it because, number one, like I said, I think it makes us more relatable when we share the things that aren't going well. But number two, I think it's also, kind of lets you off the hook when you do mess up, but you didn't mean to mess up. Whereas
Oh
you
yeah.
were saying before we started recording, Bobby, like, hey, we can edit something out if you say something controversial that you don't want out there. Well, if you're promoting yourself as not perfect, it's like, well, I mean, did you expect me to say something clear all the time? And obviously we gotta filter ourselves. But yeah, that's the long story of being not perfect.
Oh yeah, because I think this ties into one of Greg's favorite stories about me, and I'll let him tell it in a moment because it just just me and my legendary blonde moments on set. And I think beforehand I probably would have kind of kept something like that hidden or only talked about it like you know with a select few, but then it's like you know, I'm human. I do hilarious when I do stupid things. They tend to be hilariously stupid. So just like let the world know. And so, Greg, just to clarify, this was on the set of a short film we both worked on last August called "What I Stand For." So, Greg, you have the floor. Tell this story.
Uh, this is the cat story, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to clarify it was that one. I think we had a few.
There are a lot of stories of Bobby doing something.
Oh man,
Okay, that's a yes. That's a yes.
I could go on for days, but yeah. Yeah, in August, at the very start of the month, myself and Bobby worked on this film together called "What I Stand For" with our friend Zach Gould, who's an amazing director, by the way. And on the first day of shooting, sorry, my power thing came up. On the first day of shooting, I came up to Zach's house, and I think I was the first one there, and I was waiting around getting my stuff signed, and then slowly people started coming in, kind of roughly around the call time, and then it was, I think it was a few minutes past the call time, and we didn't see Bobby anywhere, so I just thought I might give Bobby a ring to just to see if he was close by and all that. I mean, I was pretty sure everything was okay, but I just wanted to check. So I gave him a call, and he said hello, and I said, "Hey man, are you near here?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm just in the estate right now. I just need to stop to get a picture of a very cute cat." And
A cute cat?
yes, and I was like, "Oh, for God's sake!" And I hung up, and then I waited for him by the door, and then I could see through the partisan blinds that he was coming into the garden, and I was just waiting to spring out at him at the door. And then when he got to the door, I just opened it up and I yelled, "Look what the cat dragged!" And he shoved his prop, yeah, it's prop, his gun in my face, and just like
AK-47, I might add.
AK-47, yeah. Subscribe to AK Productions.
Because it was a war. I was lending a few props, and I was basically...
and yeah, he was dressed in camo. He had a bandana and sunglasses on, and he gave me a hug straight after that. And then I told him, "Wait, you walked through an estate of houses dressed like that, carrying what looks like an AK-47?" And he said, "Yeah, it was just for a short time." I said, "Man, that's not really safe." I mean, I've made that mistake too, and worse, but like,
just me just carrying weapon props around in public without realizing. But yeah, so yeah, I'm far from perfect. Well, thankfully we were able to laugh about that. But yeah, we will talk more about Tony Rossi now, as you wanted to talk about some challenges that you've personally faced growing up and just in your acting career in general. So, what kind of points did you want to hit on?
Oh, for sure. And first of all, thank you for having me on, Bobby, to talk about these things. I think,
yeah, it's important
we get so caught up. What's that?
Well, yeah, like it's important to talk about all these kinds of things, I think.
I agree, and I'm glad that actors are recognizing that there are things outside of the craft that are just as important to talk about. So growing up, I had a lot of insecurities, like super low confidence, super self-esteem, and I wanted nothing more than the popular guys to want to hang out with me, and for the girls to think I was cute, pretty much. And neither of those things were happening. And a lot of trips, by the time I entered the sixth grade, a lot of trips to the guidance counselor, a lot of crying, and just really not feeling secure about myself. And everything changed one day when I was at my locker. And so I'm at my locker and I'm opening this blue combination lock, and we're assigned alphabetically. So I have this guy next to me whose name was Tony Tempesta. So I'm Tony Rossi, he's Tony Tempesta, and Tony Tempesta says to me, he's like, "Tony, you know who you look like?" Now, bear in mind, this was when I was about 11 years old. I wasn't quite as, like handsome and put together as I am now, for all of you who can see this, but I also, I wore glasses. So like didn't do anything to my hair, wore glasses, was just as skinny as I am today. And Tony Tempesta goes, "You look like Harry Potter." I'm like, "Oh." Harry Potter?
Wonderful.
Wait, I do? He's like, "You absolutely do." And he goes, Joe, does he not look like Harry Potter? And Joe's like, "Oh my God, Tony looks like Harry Potter." And keep in mind, the movies weren't a thing yet. This was about 20 years ago.
So
But
illustrations
wow.
going off.
Yeah, no, like they were judging it off the cover of the freaking book. And they were like, "Yeah, you do." And I'm like, "Okay." And I was asking other people, I was like, "Do I look like Harry Potter?" They're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." But here was the thing. Harry Potter was really, really cool. Like, it was brand new, but it was like the thing to get into, and especially in middle school, and all the teachers were on board with it. So I'm like, man, people are comparing me to something that people like. So long story short, I get the idea in my head as the books are being turned into movies a couple of years later that, oh, well, if I look like the guy and I'm the right age, well, they can just cast me and we'll call it a day. But really, I just wanted a way for people to like me more. I wanted, and look, actors, we like attention. We do. It makes us feel really good. We're emotional beings and we like the attention. And at the time, I thought acting would get me the attention, not just the attention, but the connection that I really wanted. So those were some of the things that I experienced growing up. And that's kind of what led me to doing a combination of everything I'm doing today.
Yeah, because I can definitely. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. I can definitely relate to that anyway. I think Greg can as well, because both of us, we're on the autism spectrum. So I'm sure, Greg, you probably had that same kind of feeling when you were in school. Which.
Yeah.
And, like, basically, I think in some ways we're all sort of drawn to acting because. I don't want to say there's a void because that's a bit too dramatic, but it's sort of like it's like a well that needs filling, and acting kind of does that for us. And but I think in some ways it can be a sort of I don't want to say like an abusive relationship sometimes, because if you allow yourself to be an actor, it's kind of opening yourself up to a lot of hurt and heartbreak and rejection, sadly. But you're a big kind of advocate of making sure that you don't just have acting as your thing, you have something else that is your thing as well, because it was previously the Tony Rossi Show, and you recently rebranded, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Actor Problems.
Yeah. And so, yeah, why don't you talk a bit about that and kind of how you were kind of compelled to go to that direction as well.
Yeah, for sure. About 2 years ago now, I started a podcast that was called The Tony Rossi Show. And all I knew, and we can get into this story as well, is that I was super into personal development, super into self-help, a lot of the stuff that our mutual friend, Bobby Ross Grant, talks about, and a lot about positive mindset. And I was getting addicted to it. I was like, I am more confident than I've ever been in my life. I really, really love like the way this is all making me feel. And so I got excited about the idea because I was listening to all of these personal development and self-help podcasts that I would have a podcast of my own. So it started out as this like tiny dot of an idea. And I was like, okay, I'll call it the Tony Rossi Show. There will be some solo interviews. There will be some I'm sorry, solo interviews. That's not an interview. There'll be some episodes that's just me, and there's others that are going to be interviews. And so I just kind of went from there. And then the more I did it, the more I realized, I'm kind of trying to talk to like the entire world rather than focus on one specific audience. And after taking a program called The Business of Coaching and Speaking with Kendall Ficklin, he really helped me narrow down who it was that I wanted to help. And at least for the time being, that's actors. Maybe 20 years later, maybe not even that long, I'll want to go in a different direction or maybe expand it a little more. But actors are the people I know best. I've been acting since my Harry Potter days at age I think 13 was the time I finally did a play. And so, yeah, I started off again with the Tony Rossi Show, and now as of just a couple weeks ago, I rebranded it to be called Actor Problems, talking about the things that make us stressed and how to see them differently.
Yeah, because there's been plenty of times where I'll have to like confess, like sometimes I do go throughout phases where I don't listen, but then whenever I do finally make myself listen, I always come away feeling better from having listened to you talk about it, because you don't sort of sugarcoat things. You kind of, you're constructive, but you acknowledge the very real problems that we face. And in some ways, I read the thing and I'm like, oh god, that's me. Okay, but then you always kind of it's like you tell us that it's okay to feel that way, and so but this is what we can do about it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%. Challenges I think one of the challenges that I have when I'm consuming other people's content is that it comes off. So because I don't always see that not perfect side of them, I don't know that they necessarily. We're not going to listen to anybody who seems fake, and people who are happy all the time come off as fake. Now, some people just haven't learned to properly brand themselves on social media, and that takes some time. And I've had a lot of training in that, some of which was through network marketing, surprisingly enough. But yeah, I think we have to start before telling people, okay, here's how to see it differently. Let's start by acknowledging that there's nothing wrong with you for feeling how you're feeling. I mean, case in point, the three of us all talked about how like we had like confidence and self-esteem issues growing up.
Yeah.
Like that's a universal thing. And while everybody's going to experience that to varying degrees, I think when it happens, we think, oh, it's just me. And we start to feel alone. And one of the reasons that I recently created the Actor Problems Facebook group is because I want other people to realize like those challenges that you're having, other people have them. And even reading everybody's introductions, I was like, what's the biggest self-care challenge that you want help with right now? A lot of people are saying the same thing. And the more we can talk about that, the more we're going to start to naturally feel better. So, I mean, sometimes feeling better is just acknowledging that the way you feel right now, maybe you're stressed AF because of quarantine right now. That's normal. Of course, because we've never been taught how to do this, I could go on and on, but yeah, that's a few of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, because Greg, I remember when this quarantine thing first came out, and we were just we were kind of like trying to get our heads around it. But then there was a quote from a book that you said you read that it kind of, you thought about it and it kind of put things in perspective of it. Sorry, the title of the book forgets me. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I think I know the one you mean. That's a quote from The Spinning Heart, wasn't it? By Donald Ryan. Yeah, it was a book I studied in fifth year in school, and the book, just to give a bit of perspective on it, the book kind of tackles the Irish recession over the last 10 years from the perspective of many different characters of different social standing. But the book kind of closes out with a quote saying, what matters only love. It was said by one of the main characters in amongst a lot of bad stuff happening, a lot of shit hitting the fan, that despite what the country may be going through, despite what all these personal characters might be going through in their own personal life, as long as we love, we stick together, and we keep each other kind, that we can pull through anything, that we can be whatever we want, and we can get through the hardest of times together. I think that's what it was trying to get through, and it didn't. I just think it summed up the situation pretty well.
Yeah, because I know Tony will get a good laugh out of this since it's My Little Pony related. The Antelope Party. But the quote from that, I only realized this a while ago, but I was kind of, do you ever sometimes feel you get pressured to, if you have a platform where you're kind of seen as a knowledgeable figure, that you sometimes get pressured to, you feel the pressure to have all the answers and kind of know everything and help everyone?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but there's like a fantastic quote from my favorite character in the franchise called Sunset Shimmer, who says, I don't think everyone's supposed to have all the answers, but you can count on your friends to help you find them.
Man, isn't it great when you can get those gems from places that maybe the general public wouldn't see as like a source of knowledge? I mean, case in point, I was just laughing at yeah, I was just laughing at the fact that, like you said, My Little Pony. But I having heard you share quotes like that before, I'm like, well, okay. It's not something I've invested a lot of time into, but it seems like something that's out there for good. So, like, who am I to judge whether that's something that I should that we should like or not like by a certain age?
Oh yeah, because one of the things that really kind of now see, Greg, you're at the right age now where you're kind of rediscovering the things that you liked as a child, right? And are you kind of now sort of realizing the lessons that you may have ignored as a child, and then you realize the lessons that they taught were so important in real life?
Yeah, I know a big example between the two of us would be like when you've talked to me and I read your video essay on Pocahontas, which is you said was one of your favorite films,
Yeah.
and I'd only watched it once as a kid, but when I saw your retrospective and I watched bits of it back, I was like, oh, this is an important message on racism and how we should, and how unity is the most important thing for a peaceful future. So there's films like that, a lot of ones from Disney, but there are plenty across different ones. That's just the one I can think of right off the top of my head now.
Yeah.
But
It was actually Ross who helped me realize the brilliance of another quote from Pocahontas, from Grandmother Willow, saying, "Sometimes the right path is not the easiest one." But since we're throwing quotes at each other, here is a great quote that Tony gave me earlier that will segue into our next bit. Hey, and as I have it on my notes here, it says, "For now is not forever."
Yeah.
So
that's a great quote.
yeah. So do you want to talk a bit more about that, Tony?
Man, is that not the thing we have to put on repeat for this season that we're all in right now? For now is not forever is something I started saying after I realized that it's a recurring theme in my life where I think where something bad happens, I want to cry, I do cry, I think the world's over, and then things get better. Now, sometimes things getting better does not mean that bad situation itself got better. Case in point, in 2014, I lost my childhood best friend. He was in an accident. And thank you. And it was a sucky situation that brought me closer together with my family than I've ever been in my life. And I don't know if that would have happened otherwise. So when I say for now, it's not forever. Again, we're not saying that like you're allowed to feel your feelings. And let's also acknowledge that's what's happening in your now. It sucks. It sucks. And even though we're saying for now, it's not forever, that doesn't mean that you're okay with your for now. We're going to try to get each other to a place where we don't, dwell in the for now. But sometimes it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have been experiencing this, but all of us here in the States. So 1 minute we're fine with everything, how everything's going in quarantine. Then the next minute we're like, why am I so depressed right now? Like I was fine 2 minutes ago. Like what just happened? And it comes in waves.
Multiple times a day for me.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And it's funny, the sun's coming out of my window and it's messing up my lighting right now, but that's okay.
And the sun is going down and messing up my life.
Yeah,
but it's
that's why I had to close the curtains.
Yeah. Here, I'll turn my ring light off. It's funny though, because like the weather's really been affecting my mood, and yet now, like here again, earlier today it sucked, and right now it's a lot better. But a small example of that is back when I didn't know anything about acting, and I was trying to get into acting because I was going to be Harry Potter. So I figured I'd join the drama club because that's how you become Harry Potter. Like it's a matter of time before the casting director comes and finds me here in the States. But I joined drama club, having no idea how to be an actor, got cast in the middle school play, got picked at total random. This was not oh, Tony, you had a gift back then. No, it was totally random. I looked just as young then as I did now, probably. I don't know. But they brought me into the high school musical at the time, which was Fiddler on the Roof. Okay. And all of a sudden, I was the kid with no confidence, no self-esteem, to I'm the middle schooler in the high school musical. Do you know what a big deal that is?
Oh,
so
for sure, yeah.
I felt super cool. And, then from there, I started taking classes at a young age. I got my first professional theater credit at 15 and just 2 years ago now, in 2018, I was in my first national commercial. I wasn't speaking, but I was in the commercial. So when I say for now, it's not forever, I had no idea how to be an actor.
Same.
And yet, just 2 years ago, I was in a national commercial. So that's all to say, if I had thought in that moment, and thank goodness I didn't, this is one of the things that naturally comes easy to me. If I had thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How is this going to work out? I don't even know anybody. Then I'd be focusing too much on the for now. When in actuality, there are things that are going to happen tomorrow that you can't even see because it hasn't happened yet. So for now, it's not forever because it's not. It's just not. Even with what we're all going through right now in quarantine. Well, okay. Oh, Tony, I mean, how can you say that? It's going to take time. Yes, it is going to take time. It's probably, and the thing is, to get out of our for now, it's probably going to take longer than we want. And maybe some bad things are going to happen in the meantime. I still don't believe that's our forever.
Because you just actually reminded me of a memory I have, and this happily is a not perfect story as well. It ties into that anyway. This is I've only maybe got like a couple of auditions under my belt at the time. This is again, I have no clue how I'm gonna make it as an actor at all, and it was an audition for an unpaid music video anyway, and I bombed. Well, I don't necessarily say I bombed the audition, but afterwards I knew, because I sometimes say the wrong thing, and when you open your mouth and you feel the words coming out, and you shouldn't have spoken, you should like gag yourself right now, but you keep on talking and you realize you just dug your own grave and there's no chance of you getting this part now. And in my taxi on wherever I was going, I was just kind of feeling very lousy about this anyway. But I don't know, if you're ever in Dublin, the Dublin taxi drivers, they're like therapists. And this one was just chatting to me, asking me what I was doing in the city, and I said, oh yeah, I was just auditioning for this thing. And I think I may have said something as like that I didn't know, how I was gonna get to, be an actor or whatever. And he says that, well, this is how you start. You start doing this sort of thing, and you keep doing this and you keep working hard. And at the time, I thought, oh yeah, well, it's easy for him to say or whatever. And then, but I think that time next year, I suddenly had so many credits on my CV, and I was working regularly as an actor as well. And that was like, that's just the time skip of 1 year. So that, I suppose that ties into what you're saying, that to not think that what's going on now is gonna be, if that's gonna be how you are for the rest of your life. Because I think, would you say that when you're young you tend to think that this way things are now, that's gonna last forever, whereas once you get older you realize things aren't permanent?
Oh yeah, all the time. No. I hear you. Yeah, all the time. Like, as we're younger, it feels like forever. And then this is such a morbid way of saying it, but the more bad things that happen to you, the more you realize, oh, things change. Like losing my friend out of nowhere. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it does happen with age. And I also don't think it has to be a bad thing. Like, there are bad moments, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing overall if you can learn from it,
Yeah, because this is the first time I've ever publicly talked about something like this. But when I was only 19, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was kind of I always saw that as sort of like the end of my adolescence there, and kind of like, oh god, what am I going to do now? But in hindsight, I can see how that sort of experience sort of encouraged me to grow. And I think beforehand, if someone had told me I was going to experience something like that, I'd be like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I won't be able to handle this. But when it does happen, what happens is you handle it. As I'm sure losing the people that you've lost, you can't prepare for that, but you just have to go with it. But if you're a strong person, you can come out on the other end. So I don't know. I started rambling there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. It wasn't rambling at all. I mean, Bobby, case in point, look at what we're going through right now. If you had, and I don't know exactly like what circumstances are like over there right now. Over here, we're still in lockdown, but it's about to be lifted, and there's some tension that comes along with that. But let me ask you both before when did lockdown start over there?
When was it, Greg?
If you don't know the exact date, that's fine.
Yeah, it was. I think it was around the start of April or a bit before that, like kind of end of April, end of March, start of April, around that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't remember exactly.
Actually.
Yeah.
It was
same,
actually. It was.
Same exact thing for us. So it's been almost 2 months then, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody had told you, hey, like at the beginning of this year, hey, this is what you're going to go through. You're going to have to go at least 2 months of that, possibly more. Can you handle that? Like, what would you have said at the time? You're like, wait, what? I have to stay inside? Like, no, that sounds terrible. I can't do that. And yet you're both here.
Yes. I'll say like the government allowing us to have one walk during the day was actually something that did help us cope, I would say. But I mean, otherwise, like, and now they recently lifted that from 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers from a house parameter, and that'll be moved to 20 soon. But I don't think, I think I would have been half and half on it, because these days I don't feel a lot of pressure. But at the start of that, when I had college work to keep up with and assignment dates and all that, it just felt like too much. And I would have thought, like, prior to that, like, oh, I hate getting up for stuff like this so early. Like, I do enjoy college, but like, no one likes getting up early. And I would have thought, oh, if I could do this work from home, I would have. I'd like to think I did all right, but my work just flunked kind of while working from home. I still think it's possible, but so yeah, there's just many things that just pop up that we just don't expect, and they're new experiences. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I'm trying.
Yeah. No. I think you're spot on. And in regards to waking up early, I'll just keep my mouth shut about what time I wake up, but I'll say that's something that is something that has evolved over the years. So yeah. It starts with going to bed early, man. It's not easy, but when you start waking up early, now I'm like 4 o'clock in the afternoon comes around, I'm like, ugh, okay.
And this is kind of unrelated to what we were just talking about, but I just remembered, I felt like mentioning this anyway, is because this will be useful for actors who maybe want to kind of take a chance in the States anyway. Because one of the first conversations we ever had was, because me and Greg were talking about, how we take our careers abroad last night, actually. And you told me that, like a lot of people think that Los Angeles is the be-all, end-all. You have to be in LA or nothing's going to happen. But then you told me that there's opportunities everywhere.
There are. I would say, and I'm learning more and more the older I get. And I would say it depends on what type of work you want to do. If you want to be a series regular on TV, that is very hard to do in Chicago. If you had asked me this a few years ago, I'd be like, no, you can do it. And you can. There are people who do it. But if that's what you want to do, LA might be the place for you to go. That being said, there's also work in New York. There's also work in Atlanta. There's work in other markets. So LA is not the end all be all. I'm finding more and more of my friends are leaving us here in Chicago. But then again, like, let's say you're okay with doing a mix of theater, commercials, and a little like some smaller television roles here and there. Well, at the moment, Chicago's great for that. But again, like, Chicago's more of a theater town. So I think it all comes down to your goals and then looking at each market here in the States, and figuring out from there, what does each market have to offer? Like, if you're a theater actor and you want to keep doing theater, LA probably isn't the place for you to go. But I know for myself, like, I'm also paying attention to what kind of lifestyle I want to live when I'm not acting. In Chicago is mostly good for that. I'm just, again, the older I get, the more I realize I have a low tolerance for crappy weather, and goodness gracious, Chicago is like the epitome of crappy weather.
We get your pain.
Oh, you do too? How is it over there?
Well, It's grand these days. Like there's been mostly sunny, but we've had a mix of sunny and downpours today.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but most of the year round, it's just rain, rain. Maybe snow in the springtime for some reason. But
It might be. It might seem like a warm day, and then you suddenly just get a random downpour of hailstones.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Fair enough. But yeah, Bobby, to answer your question, I think it also comes down to what type of lifestyle do you want to live in. In Chicago, I don't need a car. I can take public transit. I can ride my bike pretty much anywhere, unless it's like super far. That being said, if I move to LA or I move to Atlanta, and I am eyeing Atlanta right now, like you definitely want a car.
Yeah, that's what Kendall was saying. She says that you definitely need to be able to drive in Los Angeles. If like you could have an audition in the Valley in the morning, and then I think in Santa Monica in the afternoon, and you could be 2 hours trying to get there.
Yeah, I still haven't made a visit out there myself yet, but
I was there when I was 2, apparently, but I don't remember for obvious reasons. But yeah, so before we wrap up, I'd just like to ask you, Tony, just what are your kind of particular hopes for your future as as an actor and as the host of Actor Problems?
yeah. Bobby, that answer has changed so much over the past couple of years. At the end of, and I promise I'm going to answer your question. At the end of 2018, I had just finished a play. I had just signed up for that business of coaching and speaking program I mentioned, and I also had an interview with a talent agency that I've been trying to get in with for. At that point, it was like a couple years, not that long in hindsight, but I don't have to explain to you guys like how much work it takes to get that meeting sometimes. And I'm like, yes, I'm in. This is my ticket in. At that point, the agent knew who I was. I was like, this is basically a done deal. This meeting is a formality. I will be signed before I get home. Well, that didn't happen, and I didn't get signed at all. I got rejected. And I thought, how much more of this am I going to have to go through? And then I took the coaching and speaking program, and I'm like, maybe I'm just not supposed to be an actor. And then I had an experience where an agent reached out to me on Instagram, of all places, and had a meeting with me. This is she. God bless her. She's super casual. It was a small non-union agency. I was with them for a little while, and even to this day, I do some admin work for them. We have a great relationship. But that kind of pulled me back into acting. So it's been going back and forth. What I'm looking forward to is being a coach for actors, offering one-on-one sessions, as well as offering like group coaching sessions and helping actors see things differently with the things that make us stressed, along with having an acting career. But for theater, I love the theater, but I'm okay with doing like a play a year. I don't have to do 10 plays a year. I don't want to be a series regular. And I'm saying that like, of course, if an opportunity came by, I would check it out. But that's I mean, when that's not your goal, it's kind of harder for it to happen. Smaller roles here and there on TV, roles on commercials, doing a little voiceover, mixing that up with theater and being a coach, like that's my dream life.
And in the spirit of our guest, I was going to suggest that we finish off by sharing a personal #NotPerfect moment of our own. And but I'll start anyway, because we'll keep things funny and lighthearted. So this was 2015 anyway, so I can't believe that's 5 years ago now. But yeah, a friend of mine who actually helped convince me to get into acting, he was talking about this thing he'd written, and he said something like, because it was inspired by when I was a kid, because as a kid I was partly raised by my grandmother, and I say in this casual tone of voice, "Oh, your parents dead?" And he just kind of looked me up and down and was like, "Bobby, you've met my mother." And she had a photography page on Facebook, and I'd literally liked one of her pictures like an hour ago. I was like, oh right, yes, this that went on Facebook anyway, because it was just too funny not to post. So hopefully you guys aren't that bad.
Should I do my one now, or?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So at the end of in school, at the end of fifth year, I remember this distinctly. I was part of this program in school called the prefects, and they'd be members of fifth year who would they'd help the first years in school to help get settled in, show them around the school. Yep. Oh yeah, yeah, stuff like that. And I think near the end of the year, we all had to stand in front of a group of first years and basically tell them why they should sign up for it, why they should be the next prefects, because they'd be going into that year next year. And I remember I got up and I was talking about the program and that we had to go through the training and the different activities we did. And I let one thing slip that just sounded so bad. I don't think I told you this, actually.
I don't think I know this story, no.
No, I think because we had done stuff like we'd done rock climbing, we'd done like I can't remember all the stuff, but one of the things we did was we had this big rope around us and we had to be blindfolded and try and arrange it into a star shape, completely blindfolded. And when I was going through the different activities, I listed it as stuff like rock climbing, rounders, and some activities with blindfolds. And everyone just looked at me and I just burst out laughing. And I don't think I got it. For I was like, it's really not that funny. But then I kind of acted like I got it. But then I think a year later I looked back and I was like, oh, that's what they thought.
Well, that's two perfect moments in one.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, they I don't think I spoke anymore for that thing, but we did get a good group of people on board for next year. So,
okay,
that's amazing.
Tony, what do you have for us? Hopefully, you're more dignified than the rest of us.
Oh man, I don't know about that, but there was so I'm originally from the Boston area, and
For real, right?
What's that?
For real.
For real, yeah, exactly,
Sorry.
for real. And so I go home a few times a year, and maybe about 3 years after I moved out here, I remember I was back home and I was at my favorite bar, and I was there with a friend. And it was just me and her, and we were catching up, chatting, having a couple of drinks, and somebody comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Tony." And I look up and I'm like, oh my God, it's my friend Mike. And I'm like, I haven't seen him in forever. I get up, I give him a big hug. I'm like, how are you? It's so good to see you. It's like, I'm good. And then he looks over at my friend who he doesn't know. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Eric." And I'm like, "Eric, no, you're not. And then I'm like, oh, this isn't Mike. And not only is this not Mike, I have no idea who this person is. And I just got up and gave him a big hug. And so he's introducing us to his girlfriend. And I'm like, "Hey, hi, how are you?" "Oh, yeah, so glad to meet you. You and him. Yeah, all right." And he goes, "Do you mind if we join you?" And I'm like, oh, no. I have no idea who this guy is. I don't know how to ask him. And I've already given him a hug. So of course I say, "Yes, of course, join us, please." And we're like an hour in, we've had more drinks. And finally he says at one point, he's like, "I can't quite remember how we met." I'm like, yes, how did we meet? Because I can't remember either. And eventually we figured out that I had met him at he used to live with a bunch of theater students, and their house was the party house for a couple of years. And so he's like, "Yeah, I remember having conversations." I have no recollection of this guy to this day.
Oh.
But oh my God, in that moment where I realized I don't know who this is and I don't know how to ask because I'm already too far in. So for a good hour and a half, I just acted like I knew my friend Eric when I didn't.
Grant had a similar.
Shout out to Eric.
Yeah, shout out to Eric, wherever he may be.
Okay, well, thank you so much to Tony for coming on here and Greg for co-hosting with me. And I want all of you to stay safe, and remember, we may be in lockdown, but who knows, by the time this goes up, things may be incredibly different. So I love you all. Stay safe.